Hello and welcome into Looking Up with Laird here on Sorare TV. I'm Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare. Joined as always by our resident experts, Harry Trades, Sam Tighe. Gentlemen, good to be back here for episode 2 of season 2. We absolutely are crushing it. I will say that of the 4 picks from last week, one was pretty popular on the market right after, and I don't know. The view of the community on your picks can only be viewed or can only be seen by the market activity as soon as the video is out. And Kyle Walker-Peters, quite a popular player these days. Sam, how does that feel?
Well, I actually think it was your doing, not mine, because while I may have suggested Kyle Walker-Peters as a player who would be looking up, you were the one on there going, God damn it, Sam, I'm going to have to buy one now. God damn it. So when you're doing that and publicly endorsing it in real time, I think that's actually the biggest sway.
All right. First off, that's not fair, but it's also true. I sent numerous offers out on cards as soon as we finished recording, and none of them got accepted. And then as soon as the video went live, my offers looked insulting, even though they were fairly attractive before. But anyway, we move on. For those of you who are somehow unaware, we do list all of the players that we talk about on this show on a Sorare Data watch list. You can just find it as Looking Up with Laird on Sorare TV. We added, 4 last week. We'll add 4 more this week. After that accusation, I'm going to let Mr. Trades start today. So sorry, Sam. But Harry, what do we got this week?
Yeah, so this week we're going to kick things off with an under-23 La Liga forward in the form of Nico Williams.
Ooh.
Yeah, one of Sam's. You made the documentary, right? Last summer.
Did. October or so. Lovely player. Although I did spend. This is not a reflection on your pick. I'm excited to hear what you say, and he's a great player. But I did spend most of the summer hoping my club don't sign him. So let's hear it, Harry.
Well, they've gone for Diaby, I think, in that regard. I guess they might want to go for him in Jan. But somebody that's sort of I kind of have been not forced to pick him, but somebody that's has had talent for forever, basically, ever since sort of coming into this Athletic Bilbao side quite a while ago now, to be fair, even though he's still stupidly young. I think he's under 23 until 27, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like an orthodox, typical Spanish player in that sense. Like, we don't really associate Spanish players with like massive amounts of physicality and sort of running in behind us and those type of abilities. And it's something that I think, mixes things up for them on an international level in that sense. I think, we've seen Balde come into the side, even though he didn't start, but that's another gripe that I have with the Spanish national team. But Nico's sort of taken his chance in that sort of winger role. I know there was a few injuries and stuff in the first game for Spain this international break, but even before that, kind of went on a bit of a heater in, I think was it back-to-back 80s or 86s or whatever they were. A couple of decisive, don't get me wrong, he's not done that with raw AA, and you can't really ask many forwards to do that. But he's a very similar player as far as like how I think he'll continue scoring on Sorare, maybe in the next, definitely this season, but for the next couple of games, we saw a sneak peek then of the fixtures. I think he's like the Doku type where, he's going to make loads of sort of duels won in that sense from taking players on. Very direct, fouled a lot. And we know, if a forward gets fouled, basically 2 points every time that happens on Sorare, on the Matrix, if you didn't know. And, if that's happening 4 or 5 times a game, you're looking at, 10 AA alone on that. Never mind chances created and the decisive that he seems to be, come into fruition for him, which didn't really happen too much last year. He was in and out of the side, judging off his just off that sort of Sorare graph. And he's somebody that, like, I don't know, it seems like the hype is kind of meeting like the expectation is kind of for like materializing type of thing with him. as far as end product goes. Like, unfortunately, on Sorare, you can be the best player, in real life, but unfortunately, we need scores. We need scores on graphs and stuff, unfortunately, and that's kind of a worry, not a worry, but something you have to be patient with under 23 players in general. But I think this could be, quote unquote, his breakout season on Sorare, I think, as an SO5 forward. And I was just looking at those tasty like 5 fixtures, well, 6 you could count as well with the midweeks as well that he will have. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying he's the best under 23 forward by any stretch of the imagination, but he's somebody I think that you could really start to buy into now, and both internationally and for his club could play a massive role for you, on SO5.
Sam, you have a pretty good read on this club. Is there a reasonable expectation that they just let him run as much as possible this season?
Yeah, definitely. Athletic are a club who, for those of you that don't know, they're not allowed to buy any players that aren't Basque. So that means their shortlist in the transfer market is about 20 people long. When they make a big sale, like when they sell Aymeric Laporte or when they sold Ander Herrera the first time, they usually just reinvest the money in either bigger contracts, as in wages for their star players, or they just pump it back into their facilities and the grassroots and just try to find the next player. So it's a very, very nice story, very holistic approach. And what it means is that when you get a player like Nico Williams coming through, he just plays because they don't have the ability to go out and find a competitor for him. And Athletic's big problem because of this process and the way that they operate is that they very often struggle to find proven goal scorers. Imagine, we all know how hard it is to find that player when you have the pick of the world. Well, how hard is it when you're not allowed to sign anybody at all? So a goal-scoring winger is a very, very valuable commodity to a club like Athletic Club. And Nico is just going from strength to strength. Last 12 months, he's really blossomed. And what I said before about how I didn't want Villa to sign him, I didn't want Villa to drop big money on Nico Williams. And we're talking 50, 60 million because Athletic don't sell cheap because they don't have to. And I didn't want the expectation around him to be created that he would then suddenly need to be a 1-2 guy because he hasn't been that guy. But the perspective changes a little bit when he stays at home, right? He's playing for his home club. He's playing with his brother. He's playing for his boyhood team. That's a different set of expectations. So I'm much more comfortable with that. So my comment before was mostly about making him a 60 million signing and then ask him to do something that he simply hasn't done yet. But put him in a very, very comfortable scenario here and ask him to continually improve, and it's a different story.
I love it. The only hesitation I would have, and I don't know how much it's really a hesitation, is that he never plays 90 minutes. And I think you can say 75 is probably enough, but I feel like it does put in a little bit of worry when obviously that Spain match, I think you can both take it for what he did and then also throw out that he played 45 minutes because he didn't really need to play anymore. Same with the Georgia match. But there are, 75, 65 to start the year. That makes me hesitate a little bit, but it's the scores are pretty amazing for 75 minutes anyway.
100%.
I love it. Nice story too. Sam, you got a tough one to follow up on because although I'll give you at least some credit for helping provide some story there for Nico Williams. But who are you adding today?
Well, actually, I'm going to ask Harry to help me out with my first one. So it's going to be even Stevens on that one. We're going to talk about Aurélien Tchouameni at Real Madrid. And it is not very often that I reach for the very top shelf in the supermarket and pick out the most expensive items to talk about on this show. But I want to talk about Tchouameni because I think it's going to be a really big year for him. And I'm pretty excited about it. I'm going to do a shameless plug now. Sorry. But I did a video on YouTube this week for Tifo about Jude Bellingham. Andrew already complimented me on it. So given that we all listen to what Andrew says, you should go and have a look. But this was this video.
Sorry, I apologize for cutting you off. Yeah. I will just say it in my own voice here. It was excellent. Everyone should go watch it. It was really good. And it's like Sam doing what Sam does best. It was great. Go check it out.
Thank you.
It was great.
But the problem there is that it was all about Jude Bellingham, and it was a bit about Real Madrid through the prism of Jude Bellingham, but it was really just about Jude. There are other players in this team and other players to talk about with regard to like Madrid's very, very good start. And they've basically switched their formation because they didn't sign a elite Benzema replacement. They've gone to a 4-4-2 diamond, and when Vinny's fit, he plays on the left striker role, Rodrigo on the right, and Bellingham at the tip of the diamond, and he basically then just runs into the box and does all the number 9 stuff. And I think they're trying to replace the Benzema goals in the aggregate between the 3 players, Bellingham, Vinny, Rodrigo. Between you, step up, and we'll figure it out from there. Now, that's a great idea, and I like the new system, but in pre-season, it looked absolutely atrocious. And the reason for that was, and no disrespect to the man, it's just not his role. Toni Kroos was playing at the base of midfield. At this stage of his career, it's just not for him. That player needs to be incredibly athletic and mobile, very aggressive defensively. They need to be able to counter press. They need to be able to trap teams in, but also maintain like a position in the center of the pitch that kind of sticks everything together. That's not Toni Kroos. But it is looking like Aurélien Tchouaméni, who has been fantastic to begin the season. And right now, to me, looks like an extremely important player to Real Madrid. So sometimes the argument is, for Sorare, that the process of elimination is quite simple. We all want the top team's key players. Everybody wants Joshua Kimmich. Everybody wants Lewandowski. Everybody wants Vinny. And I think Tchouaméni is going to have a hell of a year. He's going to prove undroppable for stretches. I'd like to see him with more consistency this year than last year. I think he dropped off at the end of last year and found it a bit tough, but he started really strongly. And if these early scores are what we can expect moving forward through the rest of the year, then my question to Harry is, how does Tchouaméni stack up for the final year of his under-23 eligibility compared to the others at this price and in this range? Because I think he's going to be massive for Madrid.
Yeah, I did obviously when you told me who you were going to pick, I did a bit of sort of just digging and stuff as far as his scores so far, and I did on Sorare data obviously, and he's regularly coming in at like top 3, for the last, because he's played all the games so far type of thing, and not many midfielders really have. And I think his L5 is like, was it 67 or something? There's a couple above him. I can't remember the exact. I think I did minimum games like 10 maybe, and then I did under 23. But regardless, I think the reason why you'd want to have a Tchouaméni in your club on Sorare is because it's just the consistency of his scores in that sense. It's not so much his peak ability. I'm not saying he doesn't score well, because there's 100 obviously for France, right? You're not going to plug in a Tchouaméni into your under 23 side or any side this season for Real Madrid because he's going to score you 100. I'm not saying that won't happen, but that's not the reason you play him. You're playing him because he's so dependable. You're playing him because he's playing for Real Madrid. And as you said, his importance, the lack of athleticism in the other centre midfielders, i.e., Kroos and Modric or whoever could play at that
they have
base.
athleticism in others, but it's just not for the base of midfield. Like Camavinga, Fede Valverde, they're better wider.
They're better further forward, right? Yeah, wider forward and whatever. Tchouaméni's like the only midfielder they have around that age that can kind of play DM, allowing the others to kind of, flourish in that sense further forward. And I think you'd be buying him because he's just so consistent. And one of the biggest things we have on Sorare is, do we think X, Y, and Z player is going to start this weekend? It seems like Tchouaméni, that is literally why you buy players, or why you pay a premium for a lot of players, is because the uncertainty around him. And it just feels like the role that he's going to have this year with Real Madrid. And it seems like his mentality has changed as well on like an actual like in real life point. I don't know what happened towards the end of last season, like you said, in and out, whatever. He seemed like a shadow of the player that he is right now. Okay, small sample size, but I think I saw something like he was training like the day of him getting back with the France. It was something stupid, like he was the only player in training after the international break, this international break. Yeah. And it was something, I read something like that, and that's always a good sign, right? He's clearly enjoying his football in that sense. And I don't know, you be buying him because he's so dependable is basically what I'm getting at. I don't think you'd be buying him for hundreds for Real Madrid. You're buying him for that 20 to 40 35 AA every game, basically. And that is valuable because there's like, for example, a Jude Bellingham. Yeah, he's on an absolute heater right now for Real Madrid. Decisives coming out of his whatever. But there's going to be games where that doesn't happen. Does Jude Bellingham's AA really match Tchouameni's AA in those games where Jude doesn't get the decisives? I'd argue no. So for me, it's a case of, do you want dependability and consistency, albeit less peak, or do you want the guy that can just do a Jude? You're paying 3 times more, more for that premium, but he can score hundreds. Well, he's like 18, and the rest maybe £1,800. I think Jude is right now, maybe more than 3 times, something like that. Anyway, and I think Tchouameni's £500. So that's why I'd want a Tchouameni right now, to be honest, because of the dependability on him. I think that's invaluable sometimes on Sorare and often overlooked.
I think that it almost feels like because he hasn't had the decisives to start the season like Jude has, that his price is still at the point where everyone is like, I don't know if he's going to play all the time, even though he's playing all the time. Mm-hmm. And like, that was the biggest thing that was going to hold him back, was Kroos and Modric can kind of play instead of him. And whether they're better or not, doesn't matter. If they're playing, then Tchouameni is not playing. And that's the problem. And at least to start the season, we have the midfield that everyone was like, man, when they finally get there, it's going to be incredible. And it's like, we're there, like it's here. And yep. I think we're also kind of ignoring that he's locked in for France too. And we have international breaks coming up in October and November where he's going to play. They obviously have midweek club football like this. I feel like we're going to get to the end of the season and just be like, we cannot believe how many minutes he's played. And he's still like a top player that throughout the season will probably be one of the highest AA scorers we know in U23. If the decisives come, they come. But like, if they come, he's at 100. He's not at 72. And so, he's obviously in the significantly weaker position to get decisives than comparing him to Bellingham, but they can come. And Real Madrid and France could have a number of these lopsided games where all of a sudden he's moving closer and closer to goal. And these things just happen.
He has a great shot on him as well, by the way. I'm not we're not disregarding his ability to score goals / assist or whatever. He is capable of doing that. Like, we're not saying he can't. He's just not very often one of those 5 players in front. There's 5 players in front of him.
They don't need him.
Camavinga on the left. They need him. Jude obviously in the 10, 2 9s or whatever, inside forward. Like, there's a lot of players above him. So like I'm not saying they'll never happen, but like we said, if they do happen, they're hundreds locked in, if we're being honest, aren't they? Because he walks to 25 AA-ish anyway. That decisive, whether it's but then the thing is, he can even do the other side. It could be a last man tackle.
Sure.
Because he is, he's there to break up play in that sense and maybe stop counter attacks from set pieces. I know he's quite tall, so he might be I don't know where he is in the, in regards to set pieces as far as, does he attack the ball? Is he in the box? Is he one of the headers, or is he locking things off? I don't know. But regardless, he can do everything. Is not a problem. That's why you'd be buying a Tchouameni, right?
Okay, so guaranteed 100 every week. Aurelian Tchouameni.
Only if he plays Ireland.
I do like that we talk about how he could always get a last man tackle, and in 132 starts he has.
Does he have none?
0. Yeah.
Hey. He's due one.
He's due one. He has to.
He's due. That's right. I mean, this chart here, it's 132 starts, and he's got 18 positive decisives. And I feel like if you saw this chart and didn't know the decisives, you would have guessed a lot more, just because there are enough, players who don't get decisives and yet are still comfortably in the 70s and 80s and 90s is really good. So I think he's underpriced.
Probably, yeah.
Sam, you kind of said how you don't go to the top of the market. Like, I don't think Tchouameni is appropriately priced at this point.
Well, there you go. We might have another Griezmann Casemiro on our hands here on looking at with Laird. Look, final point. Obviously, Modric and Kroos are not dead. They are still playing football, and they will play some minutes. The the point I'm sort of trying to make is that I actually don't think either of them can really slot into where Tchouaméni plays right now. So you're looking at rotation for Camavinga and Fede Valverde in those scenarios, very likely. Tchouaméni can't play every game ever for the rest of the season, but he looks like the player that we hoped he would be last season, whereby he plays more often than not, 90% of the time, because I don't think there's anybody else in his team that can now fulfill this new role in their system.
I'll add a final thing that Real Madrid is also a club whose lineups we tend to have a very good indication of before matches and before game weeks. So in the instance where we know Kroos or Modric will start, like we tend to know if it is coming in for Valverde or Tchouaméni, like there are not a lot of secrets when it comes to Real Madrid. And so that just helps us know when to play him.
Cool.
Man, I love Tchouaméni. I'm not going to lie. So I was excited to have him here. Harry, let's keep up the positivity here with another player I love, who is probably one I've never heard of.
Yeah, he is going to fall into that category, I think, because he only has 3 rare cards, 1 super and 16 limited. And that is
God.
Theo Leone, that plays for Anderlecht in the Belgium League.
You have the super rare?
I don't. I am not pumping my own bags for once.
Wow. All right.
I know. It's a shock. Honestly, a really sort of weird story when I started researching his sort of, rise to the first team. But, he's been at Anderlecht for like 10 years, basically. And only kind of really came into the side this season as like a genuine starter. He made his debut, I think, under Company actually a while back when he was a little bit younger. But this was kind of shocked me a little bit because Anderlecht do kind of, I don't know, they're one for like bringing through, young talent and whatever. And it kind of came to my attention that they didn't really fancy him because he wasn't like physical enough, effectively. It's kind of why he's like a late bloomer at 23, only now getting into the side. But, a typical number 8, of course, he has had his fair share of set pieces already, hence why he's being brought up. I don't know how consistent they'll be because I think that is it Dreyer or Dreyer, however you pronounce his name, another Anderlecht player. Sorry, he was out of the side for a couple of games. I think he got suspended, maybe. So and Dreyer obviously is one of their corner takers. So Leone had a couple. The new guy from the French league, Flips, or however you pronounce it. He has also taken set pieces as well. I think he's obviously right-footed. Leone is left-footed. So I think he obviously took Dre's place. But just a typical, a number 8 that, seems to be on a heater right now since the start of the season where he's getting himself in the box. He's getting goals. He's getting assists as well. And he's getting some really crazy all-around score as well. I think he had like four interceptions in that last game against Genk. He's just ticking all the boxes right now of an under 23 midfielder that, is putting up some really nice scores. And, Anderlecht looked better this season. They had a weird season last year. Obviously, got quite far, didn't they, in that conference league. And then the league was just like a write-off last year. It was really strange. They were real bad. But this season they've started pretty well. I mean, what's that? 3 wins and a draw against Genk, who are obviously one of the better teams in that league. And yeah, he seems to be pretty nailed in that side and has taken his chance, been there for a long time, like I said, and hopefully can kick on from here. But, price wise, we're in that discovery mode right now where, 3 rare mints is an issue in that sense because, he's on a heater, right? So he's only going to come in quite expensive. It's one of those ones where, just maybe, watch it play out a little bit over the next couple of games. They do have some nice fixtures as well, though, Anderlecht, barring the Club Brugge fixture. And I'm just interested to see if he can sort of, continue this sort of, this scoring form because the AA is there as well, which is big, isn't it? We always say, decisives are, are big for players in general as far as their scores go, but AA is even more important realistically, isn't it? So when in those games he doesn't get the DAs, he is also, complementing it and, with the AA.
I feel like the recent scores are the ones we expect to see from Tchouaméni if he gets more decisives.
Yeah.
Those are some good-looking scores.
That's really for not. You would think those were like dominant set piece taking stats. That he's taken every
100%.
corner and every free kick since this season, and it really hasn't been that case. I'll say that the matchups haven't been the hardest. Antwerp and Genk are okay.
Yeah, fair enough.
Genk.
Yeah.
But I say that he's got some decent fixtures coming up also, aside from that Bruges match, which is at least at home. So, I mean, I get realistically Anderlecht are going to be favored in most league matches anyway. And so I don't think you're ever going to look at you're going to have fewer situations where you look at his matchup and think, I don't really want to play him this week. I also really appreciate the fact that he's gotten a single score in each of these.
Oh, I was just looking at that, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of annoyed that he's got a blank column.
Well, he's got 58 this weekend, apparently, so that he can get another one in there. And then he'll work his way on the twos. But yeah, Harry, you were absolutely right. I've definitely never heard of this guy. But those scores make it look like somebody that we should be paying attention to. And it is a good point that we are kind of in the price discovery phase, and we've only had one card sold on the secondary market. I wonder if that was a reward. I guess we have a few that have gone it, but I don't know if those scores keep up. He seems like a pretty decent play.
Yeah, and you'd have to think like he's been at this club for so long. I'm not saying he's looking at his decisive scores on Sorare, but he obviously wants to keep up his form to keep himself in this side because I think they bought him from Charleroi when he was like 8 or 9 or something. He's been there for years at Anderlecht.
Can you do that?
Yeah, compensation. Yeah, you can buy 6-year-olds these days, unfortunately, not in the illegal term or way. There is that. I'm sorry. It happens in football, lads. It's just part of the game. It does. I mean, what do you want me to say?
This is not the turn I thought the show was going, but all right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, lads. Took a turn.
Let's see. Oh yeah, so this is his last season of U23 eligibility.
Yeah,
I have to now remember that 2024 is now next year.
Wild.
This is a late breakout, huh? Really late breakout.
Yeah, very late. Very, very late.
But recent similar scores to Matt O'Reilly and Joey Veerman, who, if you're going to have similar scores to players, those are pretty good ones. Sam, who's the last guy on our list today?
Okay, yeah. Let's go to Jorge Sanchez, a Mexican fullback who joined Porto towards the end of the summer window. I think this is a nice opportunity for Sanchez. I know it didn't quite go to plan for him at Ajax. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong because I dipped in and out. I didn't watch it religiously, but there wasn't that much to love from Jorge Sanchez at Ajax. I think it's probably a bit disappointing, but Ajax were disappointing, weren't they? They kind of fell apart. And so everybody kind of gets affected by that. So this looks like a nice change of scenery for him. And I also think it's a really nice destination because for several years now, I've looked at Porto's squad and thought, great forwards, great stock and depth of central midfielders. Pepe is never going to die. Diogo Costa is amazing. But your fullbacks are really average.
Mm-hmm.
And they've kind of been getting away with just rolling out whoever, Wendell, Sanusi, João Mario. I'm not saying they're bad players, but I've always thought Porto could upgrade at fullback. And in picking up Sanchez, I think this is a really nice opportunity because he's a good player. We know that. He's an established Mexican international. So you've got that kind of basis of comparison. And of course, you've got that nice international utility to fall back on at the very worst. But I think he's got an opportunity to get into this team and then kick on. And if you're a starting player for Porto, you're a pretty good card because they're one of 3 exceptionally dominant teams in a league where the bottom half of it, they play in public parks. So that's a great recipe for success, in my opinion.
I think it
they
can
don't
be
really play in
that.
public parks. They don't really do that.
The The other thing you should point out is that Porto are no longer minted, and so we probably won't get new cards of Sanchez anytime soon, unless that license comes back. But as somebody, Harry, didn't you also have a Joao Mario forward card?
Up until quite recently, guess who I bought it off? I'll let the comments guess that one. But no, yeah, I did. Yes, I actually paddled him not too long ago for that Brennan Johnson that I got. Yeah, well, as part of a deal that I paddled. But yeah, Joao Mario is not a right back.
No,
in my book,
that's exactly where I was going with that.
There. Yeah, so they've had a makeshift right back for a long time now, and it works. If you're in a dominant side, you can probably play a winger at right back. Like it just happens. He's not very good defensively, but this Sanchez, has more of a. He is a right back.
He's a right back. Yeah.
Yeah, like he's just a right back. He can do both sides of the game. Where I don't think Joao Mario really needs to defend realistically, apart from in those two other games where they play and Braga, I guess. And obviously Champions League. Yeah, I think Sanchez will get chances. Whether he takes them or not is obviously up to him. But there's definitely going to be, chances to get into that side, I think.
And obviously from the limited price chart, you can see when news of the transfer happened.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that he basically hasn't played yet for them yet, it appears that people are giving up on him. And so the floor has literally returned to where it was before the transfer. And that seems like a decent opportunity to get in, and a player that, like you said, doesn't have a ton of cards. The rare floor is well out of whack of the recent sales. But yeah, I think if you can make the argument that he should be the regular starting right back for Porto, I think that's the only argument. Like a true right back playing right back for Porto. There's your argument, and I think it's pretty strong. Simple as that.
Yeah, it's a similar sort of line of logic to you really want these guaranteed starters or these first team players at these top clubs that can dominate games. It's a similar vein of logic to Tchouaméni. If you can consider him to be the top dog in that position, if Sanchez gets that role, he should more often than not score pretty well because we know he's quite good. And I know this doesn't sound like a lot, but given the way Porto have left their fullback position group kind of fester over the last couple of years, the fact that they've even spent 5 million on Jorge Sanchez is actually a really positive sign to me. I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but they've just been kind of getting away with literally anybody off the street for 2 years. So the fact that they actually addressed it and spent money on it is a really positive sign to me. And I'm sure Hector Herrera gave him a glowing review of Porto and said, "Go on, crack on, enjoy it."
Who knew those visits to the public park were actually scouting missions so that they could find the right back?
Sometimes you watch Porto or Benfica play away from home. Harry, you'd have had plenty of this with Flo Luis, and you just can't believe the stadium they're playing in. Like you can see people walking their dogs in the background, and it's like, what? I remember looking at Bruno Fernandes when he joined Man United, a couple of years ago. Some of the pitches he was playing in, it just genuinely really embarrassing. But yeah, that only further illustrates the point that this league can be very, very lopsided. And if you've got the player on the right side of that, you can be at the top of the matchups chart that Harry goes through so often.
As Harry just disappears on us. But I guess that's a good opportunity. Oh, we're going to get Hidden Harry too.
Okay.
Oh, well. Thank you everybody for joining. Yeah.
Harry Houdini. We have to call him Harry Houdini from now on.
Literally Harry Houdini now. Yeah. Oh, there we
go. Did I disappear?
You did. You did. You have reappeared just in time for us to say thank you to everybody for joining. If you could please like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And yeah, as a reminder, you can see this watch list on Sorare Data. The link will be in the description of this video. As a reminder, all of these players are added as we do the video, but the video doesn't come out until later. So if you subscribe to that watch list, you'll be able to see all of the new names before everyone else does, and you can beat the Kyle Walker-Peters rush. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next week.